Welcome, Color of Success podcast family. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Check out my memoir, Cancel the Filter, Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color, where I share my experiences in the realm of mental health, both professionally and personally. Color of Success podcast is streaming on all your favorite platforms and socials. Whether you're on the go or comfy on the sofa, you can tune in at your own comfort. As you know, we love growing discussions with our guests from our AAPI and ethnic minority communities. With so many friends and experts from different aspects of life, we love learning their stories and understanding what their success means to them. Let's get into it.
Thank you so much, everybody. Part 2. So this is Eileen's first time on The Color of Success. We are filming as well. So I do want to introduce Eileen Li-Ying Lundquist. After high school, following a strong desire to find freedom and get to know the family who lived in the United States, Li-Ying abandoned her life in China. Even though she faced many obstacles of abandonment, heartbreak, and injustice, she never gave up and was determined to find love, happiness, and make an impact on the world. Her resilience has made her dreams come true. The hard lessons she learned helped her grow, find love, including self-love, and taught her to forgive others and herself. Eileen, thank you so much for joining me today. I was blown away by your book, Wings of Silk, and I read it in 2 days. And what I did was I was retelling the story around the dinner table, of course filtered because I had the kids there. And I'm wondering if you can walk me through your mental health journey, being in, growing up in Chairman Mao's very oppressive reign, and then coming to New York, pretty much being unwelcome. That's an understatement by some of your relatives.
It was a learning journey, and growing up in China under restrict government rules, I wasn't allowed to choose my own journey. For example, what subject do I need to study? And just not being myself, because government have a lot of ideas, what we can study, what can we do, and what career we going to choose in. To a point, even who to marry to. The government has a saying over our life. And coming to the United States, I remember in college, and by the second year, I was told, well, you need to choose a major. That's a major burden for me. For the first time, I had to choose for myself. That's so hard. And through all this process, I learned how to choose for myself, listen to my heart, and how to set my own destination. And that's the journey I went through.
Could you talk about the role of forgiveness in your journey? Because I think that was a huge turning point in dealing with your past traumas.
That's right. Have you heard a term called the memory you bury alive? So when we go through life, the traumas buried in our memory really shake and mold us to be the person we are. And oftentimes it's limited and confine us from the best version of ourselves. For example, my son went with a school trip to Washington, D.C., and he came back, the airplane ran into a turbulence. And from then on, he wasn't able to fly. And imagined how confined his life without flying in these days, right? And for myself, I went through experience as being abused physically, mentally abused for my college professor. He literally tried to rape me. And I have this mental block of open myself to a man who can really love me. And I went into the first marriage with this crooked idea about a man and end up being in an abuse relationship. And not until I learned how to forgive, how to let go of that trauma, and then I met my husband who's sitting there, and we're celebrating our 23 years anniversary on this trip.
Yeah, I spoke to him off camera and I'm like, you made the right choice. Because like I said, I read the whole book and I just was screaming kind of at the pages as you were going through these different relationships and the men that hurt you and that professor, oh God. And I told my girls, do not drink open, container kind of cups from people if you have this gut feeling that something is off, right? So this is a good segue because you talk about your first marriage and how difficult it was. Also the decision to when to leave. And so do you have any words of wisdom or advice to people that are struggling with these abusive relationships and having to go through this daily trauma?
I want to write about this because it's a transformation for me. I often, before this transformation, I felt that something wrong with me. And I felt that as an Asian woman, as Asian girl, we always blame on ourselves. Even we're being abused, we're being sexually assaulted or something, then I'll be questioning, do I wear clothes too low? Or do I have too big a smile? Do I mislead that person? And even in the marriage that I was being abused mentally, I still question myself. Maybe I didn't cook well enough. Maybe I didn't make him happy enough. And I want the girls and women who read about this book have this kind of self-love and have the confidence that it's not just we being not good enough. We need to develop the self-love and courage to speak up, to walk out a relationship that doesn't work. That's my purpose.
So my family all have butterflies on their forehead because you have passed out stickers. The butterfly has so much meaning for you. You talk about this beautiful memory of receiving a kite and it having this sense of freedom for you. Why have butterflies fascinated you throughout your life?
Since a young girl, even like 4 or 5 years old, I even have the picture. I was catching butterfly, and always fascinated by butterfly. I couldn't explain that. But then when I get older and have life experience, I just felt the transformation from a caterpillar into the butterfly is the most fascinating process in nature. And it's like metamorphosis to its example of how we grow, how we transform from physically, psychologically, and behavior from a naive person to a best version of ourselves. I just feel that it's really beautiful.
Why was it so important for you to be vulnerable and honest in this book? Because, like I said, you laid it all out there, and I was here for it. So, what gave you the strength to do that?
I have to credit that to my publisher, since my publisher also my friend, and she told me, you have to write authentically. The more authentically you write, the more you can touch people, and the more real people can relate and resonate with your story. And that was the reason. I do feel the effect when I visit the book clubs and talk to women who read my book, regardless the nationality they're from, even people from Poland, from all different walk of life and different nations, they said, I can relate that to you, I can resonate with your story. And I encourage everyone, if you want to write a book, really write authentically, and that's can touch, not only can touch all the reader's heart, and also it's the authenticity shows into the world and can capture the interest and make your story real.
So I also want to acknowledge, this wasn't on the pre-questions that I gave Eileen, but she is brilliant. She worked for Motorola. I don't want to give away too much of her story, but she worked on, when it was called SMS. And I know that the kids don't know what that is about, but it pioneered what we know as text messages and really set the foundation for what we now know as social media. So, you know, Eileen, I work with a lot of tech professionals, female minorities, who pretty much get bullied out of being in those environments. And so how would you encourage our young girls to, you know, pursue STEM careers or, you know, find support for their passions and letting them prosper?
Right. I started working for the AT&T Bell Lab. It's a little different name from my book.
Okay.
And that was the monopoly of telecommunication. And the company it was an old-fashioned company, and most of the people worked there was white male with PhD degrees. And I came in as Asian woman, and we all look younger than our age, right? Especially like 30 years ago. And there were so few women engineers in our company, and I often mistaken to be like a summer intern, or you know, those comments. And but I felt that I had a very supportive manager to support me. The first manager, he at that point, because of my experience, I still really protected myself from male figures, especially boss figure being a male. I was fortunate, my boss was a gay gentleman, so take that out of my mind. And he was so supportive of me, and I was not able to speak fluently in English at that time either. But one time he saw my report, he called me to his office and he told me, your idea is brilliant. You need to speak out more in the meetings, present your ideas. Disregard if you have an accent or you have, you know, language barrier. And that set the foundation for me to have the confidence and believe in myself. For women in the STEM field right now, we're just as brilliant, as smart as anyone. Later, I became a leader, engineer leader, and I work with all these gentlemen, sometimes double my age too. But what we can put out there, it doesn't lie. Performance, knowledge, ability doesn't lie. So do not let that get in the head of self and prevent us to shine. I basically became a lead engineer, and it happened that I led the team to develop the short message service. And text message is one of the applications only, believe it or not. And that was the first ever text message from mobile to mobile text message born in the whole wide world. And I'm just doing fine. And if you are in that field, just do what you need to do, and that your performance, your result will show it by itself.
Thank you for leading the way, because, I don't always realize on the day-to-day when I'm bold, women like you have paved the way. I'm like, oh no, I'm not an intern. Hi, I'm Dr. Wong. So it just clears it all up for people. Now this is a different aspect of the question, because my husband and I are going to be celebrating 24 years together at the end of the month as well. And I see your husband just beaming at you. It's hard to turn off the psychologist in me, so I see the wonderful vibes that he's giving you. What do you think goes into a long-term relationship? Because over 20 years, it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
You are right. I think that to start the relationship with the right reason, that helped a lot, because we genuinely like each other, and we're both engineers, and our mindset is kind of similar, and we just like each other to begin with. And I'm a little bit shy. I do admire him with a lot of qualifications I was looking for. And when I get into this marriage, starting with the right feet, I felt that we can just develop to a deeper relationship in the longer term, even though we do have differences. For example, I'm an extrovert, he's an introvert, and we need to learn how to navigate that. When he's responded to my extrovert personality, it's different than what I expect. And we went through counselings too, and to resolve those differences, and to appreciate the fact that none of us are perfect. We have our shortcomings, and but we look each other's better side, appreciate the person, the positive side of the person really keeps our relationship going.
I think that was one of the differences in this relationship that you talked about, was that he approached you and said, I want to go to therapy. And I was like, what? So, I think that is so important to highlight, that therapy is not this evil thing that's going to, open up all your, baggage to be shared with everybody. It is supposed to be a safe space to really talk about differences and similarities and values and things of that nature. So thank you so much for highlighting that mental health piece. So, any upcoming projects or messages that you wanted to share with the audience today?
I was born to be a writer. Since 5 years old, I dream of becoming a writer. But my parents had a different path for me, and I'm glad, because went into engineering, gave me all the experience that I have to write about. If I just became a writer, I wouldn't have those experience to write about. And even in engineering, when I do coding, I felt so bored. I was just terribly bored. Programming, boring. Until I promoted to be a system engineer, which I wrote requirements documents to tell the engineer how to program, I was alive. And then I realized I am really born to be a writer. And then that's why I decided to write. And since I'm retiring, I retired from the engineering field, and then I have really good success for writing, and I see the impact. I decided to continue to write, and the next piece I have in mind to write is about my great-grandfather. He came here in 1860s, and one of the many Chinese laborers to fix the railroad, and that piece of history is not in our textbook. It was just a side note of just a very brief mention where it should be in a whole chapter. It's a crucial part of American history, and I wanted to write about that. And this time I wanted to write in more of the children's book form. So that's my next project.
Thank you so much, Eileen, and we'll take questions from the audience if anyone has any.
Hi, it's Jenny B again. I'd like to ask you about fear and courage. To have the courage to write your story, tell your story, you know, the fear of living through the experience, fear of the memory, the fear of writing it, you know, bringing it all up. What was your process, your mantra to have the courage to push past that fear, the process of writing, and also maybe the fear of judgment or repercussions from, you know, what your very powerful words and messages in your story is. And also, I don't know if this applies to Stephanie at all about fear, but what your process is and advice to anyone else to use courage and bravery past that fear.
That's a really good question, Jenny. And I credit that courage to my publisher again. I know my publisher as a friend more than 10 years ago. And she knew she's Jewish, and she knew about my story. She said, you have to write about it. You would inspire so many women in the whole world, and you wouldn't know about it. You inspired me when I went through my difficult time. Your story inspired me. And think about how many other women you can inspire. It took her literally more than 10 years, non-stop, to encourage me to write. And also, when I went through a therapist, my therapist also encouraged me to write about it. He told me that it's a memory that you wanted to write on paper. It's a therapist for yourself to write about it. And both of them said, you can write about it, you don't have to publish. And then by the end, I finished writing, and I said, okay, fine, I can publish. That's why I call it novel, but this book, basically on my true story. And if I'm not that courageous, and I call it memoir, because my publisher saying that being a memoir, marketing-wise, is you do much better as a memoir. People love memoir much more, but I still holding back and call it novel.
Second book.
Yeah. I experience fear on a weekly basis, I think. I work in a system that is still dominated by white males, and, you know, I'm half their age, and I think putting out a book is really daunting because I'm a therapist, and so if a client possibly reads it, they know more about me than, you know, one would necessarily disclose because it's not clinically relevant all the time. But I had to really share my truth in terms of being a mother, being someone who is balancing multiple jobs, and it's not easy. People look on social media and they're like, oh my God, how do you juggle everything? I'm like, I don't, you know, and my husband is amazing because he won't admit it, but he's a feminist, oh my God. And so he does the cooking. He learned from TikTok. He makes amazing meals. He does what I can't, or rather won't do, and make sure that our girls have a good foundation in their lives. So I owe it to him, I owe it to my girls and my family for really encouraging me to do what I want to do and do what I love to do. But, you know, I think fear, everyone's human. We all get scared, but at the end of the day, what is, you know, consistent with our values? And for me, it's being open about the hardships that we face as Asian American women. And I'm, you know, so fortunate to connect with people who are braver than me, I think. Any other questions before my youngest claps us on the stage? Oh, we have more questions, okay.
So you both have written your first books, and Eileen, you've already said you're gonna write your second, and maybe Stephanie will too. Is there anything you're gonna approach differently the second time around? Lessons you've learned from the first time that you might not want to repeat or do differently as you're writing the second one?
The second book that I have in mind is targeted to younger adults, like school-age children. And it's an adventure for me. I'm not familiar with the process, and but I'm fascinated by the children's mind, and I felt that our children need to know what our ancestors do for this country, and I want them to be proud of who we are, and I think that is the motivation for me. In terms of how I'm going to carry it out, I don't know yet, and I'm hoping Oliver Chain there, he's going to help me. Yeah, just a concept right now. Thank you.
I don't know if I'm gonna write another book, because that was a lot of work. But I will say that, you know, as long as people want to continue being on the podcast, that's the platform, right? Is for me to help destigmatize mental health and be able to share a little bit more about their journeys. I think everyone has a story in them, and so I'm just kind of the platform to help them share that.
There was another question. What is the podcast name?
It's Color of Success.
Hello, I'm Asako. I'm Japanese, and I really admired your decided to write your vulnerability and then also pain. But I just have a very simple question. I love their title of the book, and then of course you love butterfly, and then butterfly images and silk, but they never put together this one. Like how did you come up to your book into this title?
It is a long process, believe me. I almost felt that I wanted to write and decide a title. We went through so many different versions of it. At the end, wings symbolize freedom and to free from our own self, our own confined self. And it's a freedom. And silk, like my publisher said to me, silk is elegant and strong. Do you know that silk is stronger than steel? It's soft, elegant, and strong. And then she said, that's you. And that's related to the butterfly too. Yeah, so that's how we decided.
Jenny, did you have one more
I
question?
do more, so I don't have all these questions. You share your story to make an impact, right? I would like to know the moment that you experienced where you feel like all the work that I've done this is the moment that it made the impact. Was it an event? Someone who came up to you and told a story? When did you have that moment that was like, yes, this is exactly what I want to do, to reach out to people, and I've achieved it, and I'm so proud, and everything is worth it?
Very good question. I don't think I'm that courageous as you all think I am. And a few years ago, I went through some health issues, and it's tremendous. I didn't even know if I was gonna live. And then I asked myself, if I don't live, what kind of regret do I have? And not writing this book came right at the top. So I promised myself, as long as I recover, as soon as I recover, I am going to write, I'm going to put the book out. And that was the moment.
When did I decide to write a book? I mean, I had a manuscript on my desk for quite a bit of time. I talk about this in the book, and I was like, what do I have to contribute in terms of my experience? But again, I work with clients in the tech industry during private practice, as well as veterans who are homeless. So I see the spectrum, but you know, many moms were saying, I'm the only one who can't deal with this. And I was like, no, you aren't. You know, there's so many things that we juggle. We're expected to be superwoman, and it was really tough. Like when I had my oldest daughter, I was in residency, and she was premature, and now she's thriving and gorgeous and intelligent, and it was just so hard. And I am just so proud of them because, and I tell people, Aria, you are a very smart and intelligent and funny girl as well. And really, I wanted to share our story, because it's not just my story, it's our story. And my husband says, why do I have to read it? I lived it. All right, whatever. But I think that that's important to share what we go through and all the things that parents have to, the decisions we have to make to help our children thrive. And those decisions on a day-to-day basis and not completely lose it is tough. Okay, well, thank you so much, Eileen. And next we have William G. Wong, the legend, so stick around.
Thank you for listening. We would love for you to subscribe to the podcast and join our community on all our socials at colorsuccesspodcast.com. Looking forward to you checking out my memoir, Cancel the Filter, Realities of a Psychologist, Podcaster, and Working Mother of Color on Amazon and wherever books are sold. I'd love to hear your Cancel the Filter moments.